We're in a fog over here. We're in the room. We're trying to figure it out. Feel like Don Maloney's giving us all the middle fingers over here. He's like, oh, you smart asses. You print your Mission McKenna t-shirts. You talk about winning the draft lottery. We're better than this. We'll get to 500 by Christmas, and you just wait. 500 by Christmas? What the hell is this guy talking about? Rocker. Well, here we are. Jan 2. They're a point back of a wild card. They're a 500 hockey team. Michael Backlund is playing the best hockey of his bloody life. They can't lose at home. They are, 10-1-1 in their last 12 on home ice?
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell's going on, Dregs. We're trying to. I can't think. I refuse to think that we were wrong, but it's looking like maybe we were wrong a little.
Might not have been right either.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure we were right.
Yeah, just a little bit off. That's okay. But it's still early. I mean, we're at the midpoint of the season, and the Flames have been through the mud. They went through it early. A lot of teams did, but because of the parity that is wild across the National Hockey League, it may go wire to wire. As long as you manage your lows, you should be okay. You can't have any wild 8, 9, 10 game losing skids or pointless streaks or any of that nonsense. And I think for the most part, Calgary has done a decent job of that. But I still think that you can still look at the Calgary Flames as a whole here and see the holes and see the areas that need to be improved on to have a better future, both short-term and longer term. So even though, it's fun for the fan base now because the Calgary Flames are in the playoff mix and, they're definitely a competitive group. The messaging I keep getting is that, all right, yeah, that's where we're at. There's no for sale sign that's going to be put up anytime soon, but there are still pieces that require some attention. And if the right offers are made, and primarily I'm talking about Rasmus Andersson, I think that Craig Conroy has no choice but to make that deal. And maybe in the short term, they get a bit of a bump depending on what the return is if it's a decent NHL player. And you get some futures that help you in the longer term and all of that. So it's still open for business in terms of the approach, I think, of Calgary management. It's just that they've got more patience now because the fan base is happy. The owners are happy because the fans are happy, and it's a fun time of year and a fun place to be when you are in that playoff conversation.
I mean, it was a party at the Dome the other night.
It's been great atmosphere I was there a couple weeks ago. It was awesome. I'm sure the Edmonton game was
the Edmonton game was great. They won 5-1 on New Year's Eve. It's the mood on and off the ice is great. It's just not great apparently in this room. Because here's what it is. This guy sitting next to me right here.
Yeah. No, he's a realist.
Just before you came on, I said, if this we're about 2 weeks away from him doing you're not going to use all these draft picks. You may as well try and get some scoring help. I mean, if scoring's an issue, you should Conroy should try and get some help in here, and there's a case to be made for it.
I made the idiot comments. I was arguing with your coworker Noodles earlier in the year, and I'm like, well, if you're going for the playoffs, then go get a score.
Yeah.
And if you do you make the playoffs? Because the objective is to make the playoffs, right? Or at least
you tied in points and tied by time.
If you had 5 more goals from someone, are you in the playoffs? And what happens then?
Right.
And it could be the same scenario. And I know what my beliefs are long-term on what the Flames should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't agree with me, then go for it.
Right.
Don't come up just short. Don't walk the line here and go, are you going for the playoffs? Fine, go ahead. Then sell and get in and try to win. But if you're just going to, tippy-toe around it, F that. I don't like that.
So what if this scenario were to play out, Rhett? I mentioned Anderson. I mean, we've speculated on Rasmus Anderson for over a year now, right? And so what if you get a near perfect package for him at this point? And that near perfect package would have to include Anderson signing a contract extension, right? Otherwise, the team that acquires him isn't giving up a lesser quality defenseman, maybe a scoring forward if they've got that depth in their organization, and a draft pick. And those are the three principal elements that normally go along with a package of this magnitude, especially, again, given that the expectation would be that you're able to, as the new team, extend Rasmus Andersson. Would you be okay? Would the Flames be okay if they got a little bit of offensive punch coming back as part of a deal? Maybe a 5'6" defenseman, and then not as good a draft pick. You can't get everything. I mean, we're not talking about a future Bobby Orr here in Rasmus Andersson. But is that worth considering, or are the needs moving forward more broad than that? And you need that highest level draft pick, and you need that top prospect more than you need the players, the pieces that might help you stay in the playoff mix or lock down a spot.
If I'm trading Anderson, it's for the future.
Okay. Yeah.
It's for the future. And if I'm not committed to a rebiggle, then I'll keep him. I'll sign his ass.
But I think that's what has some fans concerned. If you are on the whatever you want to call it, if you're of that way of thinking, that if they continue to win and they're 500 and they're there, well, how can you trade this guy? How can you do that to the locker room? What kind of message does that send to the guys who have fought so hard to put themselves in a spot to be here to then pluck this guy out of the dressing room? We do that. It seems like we do that.
Well, but Boomer, year. then stop messing around.
Yeah.
And we're into the new year here, right? The trade deadline is March 6th. So there's lots of time for a team to step up to make the decision an easy one for Craig Conroy. And look, if somebody's willing to overpay for Rasmus Andersson, fill your boots. But make Rasmus Andersson make an educated and sound decision sooner rather than later. And what I mean by that is, if you actually look, I know he's a good dude. I haven't found anyone yet who thinks that.
Agreed. He's played his ass off for the Calgary Flames.
He has. He's a leader in the organization. So, all right, put something on the table. And I'm sure they've had the parameter conversations of what it would look like. And I'm sure initially, the Flames like, I don't like the look of that. Okay, well, put something competitive on the table where Anderson's got to make the call. Yeah. I want to stay in Calgary because I believe in the organization. Maybe there's some selling on management's point to Rasmus that, okay, you're getting the contract you deserve. But on top of that, here's what we're going to do to try and make it better short term and then longer term. And that's where it gets a bit more complicated. But we're not talking about a year from now. We're talking about weeks. Mm-hmm. That's really the window that they're looking at now and dealing with this.
I'm not sure what they'll do.
Yeah. Like that seems like a feasible approach. Yeah. We've kind of tiptoed and we're not we'll talk. We don't talk once we get into the season. That's bullshit. Look, you've talked about wanting to stay. We're happy to keep you. We've been so far apart in numbers. Let's cut through the shit. The cap's going up. We've got lots of cap space.
There's tons of cap space, and the cap's going up. And Pinder is always yelling in our ear saying, "Well, no one's going to be up against the cap because it's going up so fast." I don't understand it. It's like, well, then why don't you just pay that guy?
Just to quickly jump in here, where Pinder is wrong in that assessment, the cap can climb to 120 million. That doesn't mean that 30 teams are going anywhere near a $120 million salary cap. And Calgary might be in that group, right? Where you just look, Colorado is the best team in the National Hockey League by a long shot. And the Avalanche owners, even though they're filthy rich, aren't going to be a group that says, okay, spend 120. No, they're our internal organizational salary cap is X. And that, not to go down a CBA path here, but that does have some of the owners a little bit concerned, because now you do differentiate between the haves and the have-nots. There will be owners, maybe Calgary's in that group, that say, no, you know what? We feel like we could put a competitive team on the ice for 110 million. And that's all you're going to get. That's all you're going to get. It can climb to whatever it is. So the cap is for teams that are in a position like Vegas, like Dallas, who are going to swing for the fence every single year. Every single year. And they have the pick of the litter because players want to go to those destinations on top of that, right?
Isn't it kind of funny how it's coming back because the cap was instituted so that everyone had to.
Yeah.
The playing fields are all the same to a certain extent.
Yeah.
The Torontos, the Rangers, they couldn't just go and sign everybody.
Yeah.
Well, if they're the only ones, if the cap gets so high, the Buffalo Sabres can't compete in a. They're not going to.
Winnipeg go down the list.
Salary cap. What difference does it make?
Yeah,
no, it's fair.
Let's pivot there. I wanted to ask you about Winnipeg. They had a 2-0, a 4-1, and a 5-4 lead. They chased Joseph Woll out of the net in Toronto.
Couldn't have started better,
right?
Yeah,
and then lose again in regulation. It's 8 straight, 1 win in their last 12. They are last in the standings today. We've talked about it for the better part of a week and a bit. I still look at this roster. So you got a Hart Trophy guy, and Scheifele was borderline Olympian. Kyle Connor's on the Olympic team, and Josh Morrissey,
one of the best leaders, in Lowry.
They have a team you would think those are the foundational pieces you'd love to have. They can't get a win. I can imagine what the tone and tenor is, but what are your thoughts? Can they pull out of this?
Well, okay, so it's easy to pick at a carcass, and right now that's what the Winnipeg Jets are. And you look around the league, okay, they make a call on Nick Ehlers. Now Nick Ehlers was a pending unrestricted free agent, and some will tell you he probably wanted to get out of Winnipeg. With all due respect to Winnipeg, he just wanted to change. You earn that right when you're an unrestricted free agent. So, so you lose a high level of speed with Nick Ehlers going to the Carolina Hurricanes. Mason Appleton, again, a very quick player. They bring in Jonathan Toews. What a great story. Sold a ton of jerseys in Winnipeg. This guy's headed straight to the Hall of Fame. Good friends with the owner, Mark Chipman, Jonathan Toews. And I don't think that there were many who were very critical of that signing, right? I mean, how could you be? Yeah. But they needed Jonathan Toews to step into that 2-center hole and be a number 2 center. And even though his game is trending upwards right now, he hasn't been able to sustain that level of play as a 2C. He hasn't been. His faceoffs are off the scale, man. Like, this guy is, he's the best draw taker there is in the National Hockey League. But for me, that's put too much emphasis on the lack of speed in that lineup. And now you're looking at Cole Perfetti, who's not a speedy player. He's a gifted, skilled offensive player. He makes plays, all of that. He's not going to drive a line. So they have too many complementary guys up front, especially, and they look slow and they look old. And on top of that, you've got Scott Arniel, who's desperate for wins. Just check out some of the minutes played by Kyle Connor and Mark Scheifele game in and game out. There was a bit more balance against the Maple Leafs last night, but I looked at their event summary last week, I think it was, and those two guys were like 26, 27 minutes each. And that's only because the coach is chasing. He's desperate, and he doesn't have anything other than that top line that he feels confident in leaning on. So it looks at the moment. That
caused you to lose the bottom lines.
Yeah, I think it does. 100% think it. Yeah. I mentioned Perfetti. I mean, there have been nights where he's playing 10 minutes or less, and now a part of that is on him. He's been around the league long enough. He's got to find a way. But then I signal him out because they made a decision to not aggressively try and extend Nick Ehlers because they visualize Cole Perfetti as filling his spot, in the lineup, on the power play, all of those things. So it's a tough fix in Winnipeg, fellas. It is, because it looks to be an architectural issue, which means Kevin Cheveldayoff is the guy that's going to have to find a way to fix it. And he's been pretty aggressive at or around the trade deadline, but it's coming at expense. And that expense is first-round draft picks and things like that. He has assets. Brad Lambert's a nice player. Ville Heinola. Those are pieces he'd consider trading, but maybe they've got to dig a little bit deeper on the trade front.
Well, and you feel like that's a team that's designed to be a 4-line, not the
way they play.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Roll them and go.
Yeah. But they're, I mean, they just haven't been good right out of the gate. And then, Hellebuck he hurt himself in training camp and then played through it until he couldn't. But this isn't a goaltending thing. Their goaltending is fine. It's just they're just.
But when do you decide you can't do it? Like, when does Cheveldayoff, and do you? Like, I don't know if that's a message that could be sold
Well,
to fans in Winnipeg or the ownership.
yeah.
They've been so good for so long. I brought it up jokingly with you to tell Zito to tank and get a top pick. Well, they're not. I feel like Winnipeg's very similar, where it's like, but at some point, you're in last place halfway through the season.
Yeah, that's the thing. Florida was kind of middle of they were within striking distance. The Jets.
Well, and it was just, I'm just being a smartass, but like at some point they have to look at this and go, okay, we have 40 games left. We're going to have to win 30 of them.
Yeah.
Is this realistic, or are we selling? Like,
well, and that's where it gets real tricky here, fellas, because, Winnipeg is that market. I remember having a conversation on the show, before, this is going back a bit here, but just taking us through the process of why they didn't go into full rebuild mold when they had Scheifele up and they had Hellebuck up. And they just realized after a pretty exhaustive research stretch of time where they talked to Detroit and they talked to teams that had gone through a several year process, and Winnipeg ownership just flat out acknowledged that they couldn't do it. They couldn't survive that. The fan base there is an educated fan base. They're not paying top dollar to come and watch a team that can't win for the next 5 years. And so can you retool on the fly? And then what does that look like? Do you move out some of your veteran pieces? We're not talking about top end guys here, but they've got enough, kind of middle of the pack forwards, maybe a defenseman or two that you can push out and maybe try and get younger and do some sort of a rebuild on the fly. I don't know, but they're getting to that place, and they'll
have
to make
their first rounder this year.
Ooh,
because to me it would
they
be
do.
They do.
Yeah,
they do.
I would be.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be long before I'm going, we're selling.
No second, no fourth.
I'm going to take the year, because it's the same as the Florida. This isn't a last place team with the talent they have.
No.
But it might be a situation where, and sadly, Arneal's going to get his ass canned because that's just what happens. But they might be smarter to accept it. And like I said above, try and get a top 3 pick. Any of those top 3 guys are going to be game changers for you down the road. Now you have a complement for the top end guys you already have, and that's where your depth comes in. Plus, you probably can move, like you said, some of the guys that are good players and can go help another team and recuperate some more talent. Restock.
Yeah. And look, whether they're at that place or not, I mean,
because it's not a rebuild. It
isn't. It's not a full teardown. I hear you. And most clubs are going into their pro scouting meetings here in the next couple of weeks, right? And that's where you really start to dig down on, somewhat of a guessing game, what other clubs are going to do, the players that could, maybe likely are going to be available. What about our own guys? But you also then have to have the conversation about dangling the carrot, right? Sure. You can put Nemestikov on the trade block. Guys like that, good players, but are they moving the needle in terms of a bigger trade? Probably not. You put a Logan Stanley out there as an example, and I just throw his name randomly out there. I mean, you could shoot high and say Perfetti. He's in a contract here, right? So I doubt very much that those 2 young pieces could ever be in play. But if you're talking about what you're suggesting here, Rhett, and that's getting into that conversation of a top pick this year.
Yeah, top 3 pick. That
you're gonna have to put out some valued pieces, right? Not depth guys, like young players that are still trying to find their way, that are attractive commodities out there. Maybe that conversation has to be had in Winnipeg, because right now, man, and there is value when you look at this draft class. You can visualize some of the pieces in that top 10, expected to go in the top 10, that maybe 2 years from being borderline impactful NHL players, right? And that has to be scintillating for a lot of teams that are kind of just hanging around, and Winnipeg isn't hanging around. They're beneath that line.
Yeah, I don't know. At some point, if you're halfway through the season and you're just looking like
well, it helps when you're last.
We're hypocritical too, because we critiqued the Flames heavily and they've climbed out of it. Or no, but they started earlier and they've had a hell of a run and they're still not in. And that's the problem. It's like, oh, great. Well, we won out of 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
You're not in the playoffs.
No.
You're not in the playoffs. Sorry.
Well, look at what, not to shift gears, but look at what Buffalo had to do to get into the playoff equation. I mean, it doesn't, I mean, is it possible Winnipeg can run off 10, 11 straight wins? I guess. I mean, I haven't done a deep dive on what their schedule looks like.
With that goalie, it's
plausible.
Right? Yeah.
If the Sabres can do it, anybody can do it. I don't. It's not a shot, but it's true, right? It's
true.
Just the likelihood of it. And what's the upside? And we talk about it here. Okay, now you're going to slide into a wild card spot and go into Colorado. Do you think that you're? And the other thing for the Jets, and I'll say this, is as good as they've been, they haven't had a ton of playoff success. They should have lost in the first round last year.
Right.
They flipped one out at the end, which give them credit, I guess. But to score that goal that late and move on and win it in overtime and games, holy, I think you were outplayed by the Blues and got through that, which is fortunate. You have never cruised in the playoffs. It's always been a grind. It's the type of hockey you play, but that's why I'm sitting there talking to the owner. I'm going, dude, we're going for a top 3 pick. Either that speed, the defenseman, or McKenna. I don't care which one we get, but I want to be in that category. And you know probably more about the rest of them. You said top 10, you can have hell of a players. But I'd be selling and going after something. Because I don't think it's a lot like being here. As good as Winnipeg's been and they're making the playoffs lots, there's not a ton of when they go into a playoff round, are they getting picked all the time? I think if you've got Hellebuck and you've got a lot of the high end players that they have, and then you add one of these other guys, then you're a favorite in a playoff series. But until then, you're still a team that has to grind out wins.
That's right.
And you're last place. Last place.
Speaking of Buffalo, I wonder somewhere Kevin Adams had Christmas and New Year's. I was thinking, those sons of bitches, like I was there. Like,
I don't
usually it's the coach. You get the coaching bump. Like did they get the interim or the internal GM bump because it's 10 in a row, and a lot of times they couldn't get out of their own way. There's something feels kind of special about that group.
Yeah,
there's no new players. It's the same guys that couldn't do it, and then all of a sudden there's some belief there.
Well, and is it also guys actually taking ownership of their jobs and going, holy shit, Adams is gone. My buddy that hired me, the new guy's not breathing down my neck, but he's paying. I'm going to have to impress this guy to keep my job. I don't know.
Right. No, I think there's something to that. I've looked at Buffalo maybe differently than a lot of people. Like, certainly this year, because having Josh Norris healthy again is a huge boost. I mean, they're much better up the middle of the ice, especially. And so when you look at their top 3 lines, I mean, they match up well against a lot of the better teams in the National Hockey League. The group of players in Buffalo, for me, is better than their previous records indicated. So I don't think anybody has an answer for, okay, well, why couldn't they pull it all together? But maybe that's what it is. Maybe from a player perspective, they finally went, okay, let's take ownership of this. It doesn't matter who the manager is. Lindy Ruff is our coach again. He's capable, but it's on us to do what we can do individually to make this thing work. But again, for me, getting Norris back healthy was a huge lift for them because it stabilizes how they want to play. It has nothing to do with Kevin Adams getting fired. And like Kevin Adams, he's known for the last couple of years that he was working on borrowed time. And he needed last year for this 10-game run to happen, to maybe get a clean slate. He overextended his time as general manager of the Buffalo Sabres. So I don't think that his firing has anything to do with this team. I think we're so quick to individually criticize players when they're not doing things right. Well, you know what? That group has taken hold now. So they deserve the credit. The players deserve the credit, not Pagula for firing his general manager or anyone else, including Lindy Ruff. These guys have taken ownership.
I can only imagine how often you've had to talk about it in the last 2 days, the Team Canada roster and how the Americans are out. And it's less about who's on it. It's about who got snubbed. It's all about snubs. And I know you've probably talked plenty about Sam Bennett,
That's
probably
fine,
more
yeah.
specifically, and now it looks like Cole Caulfield might be the guy. There's a few guys on that American
Yeah.
team. I mean, it speaks to the depth of the two countries, but I guess just your thoughts seeing Bennett off of the Canadian roster, especially after 4 nations and a Conn Smythe in a calendar year.
So Tuesday night, I got to Minnesota on Tuesday, and I only went there for the Team Canada unveiling on Wednesday, and had the luxury of watching Canada play Finland at the World Juniors. But Tuesday night, I felt pretty strongly that I had the Canadian roster nailed. I did. And that included Matthew Schaefer not being in their top 8. Again, a lot of conversation about Connor Bedard and whether the injury hurt him. Well, it obviously didn't help him, but Bedard in the mix, okay, but was he likely making it? No, he wasn't. Bennett was on the team that if I had been asked to publicize Team Canada Tuesday night, Sam Bennett would have been on the team. And the decision for me was between, is it either Bo Horvat or is it Nick Suzuki of the Montreal Canadiens? I did not see both Horvat and Suzuki making it together. And then I learned, thankfully, Wednesday morning, that Sam Bennett wasn't going to be on the main roster. And both Horvat and Suzuki were making the team. And so there were, for me, those were the 2 levels of surprise, to be fair. Now I say that, and you have to acknowledge some of the good players that snubbed, strong word, but if you have a Tom Wilson, do you need Sam Bennett? I say yes, because I look at his 2 Stanley Cups, his Conn Smythe, the leadership, the fact that he drags you into the fight. And that doesn't mean Tom Wilson shouldn't be on the team. I just would have found a way to get Sam Bennett on the team. And it feels like, even though Doug Armstrong says it's a 1-for-1, it's a case by case. Somebody gets hurt, it depends on who that somebody is as to who they call as an injury replacement. How can Sam Bennett not be your first call? With, look, I mean, Mark Scheifele, yeah, I mean, he was right there at the end. Bedard down the list for me, but those are the conversations you have when injury crops up. But I can tell you, management and coaches chewed on Sam Bennett right until they had to submit that final roster. But there's a lot of time between now and the drop of the puck in Italy, so we could see some injuries, and maybe he makes it anyway.
And Horvat got hurt last night. Like, to your point,
yeah, I don't think it looked worse than what it is. I think we'll learn more in the next day or 2, but they still have time for that.
Is he having a hell of a season? Because I think out here, he's a good player, but
Horvat?
Yeah.
So this is. And I don't know what you guys feel about this. I'm old school, and I have time for it. Bo Horvat had a hell of a men's world championship. Really, really good. And followed that up start of the year with a real strong start with the New York Islanders. Then he got hurt. All right, so he comes back off an extended injury, picks up where he left off. So management felt strongly that Horvat should be on this team. And then conversely, you look at Nick Suzuki, having a great year as captain of the Montreal Canadiens. But because of timing issues, some personal stuff, he was just never available to Team Canada for the men's worlds when they would call. Sorry, something come up, I can't go. Well, that's where the politics of this stuff, unless you're an elite level player, comes into play. There are elite level players who have turned down their country more than once when it comes to playing at the World Championships. And it's, it doesn't make headlines. It's not that big of a deal. If you're a young guy and you're still climbing that international ladder and you say no, that leaves a bit of an aroma for the Team Canada management group.
Happened to me, I
guess. Happened to this guy.
It did, didn't it?
That aroma.
Realize
You were giving off an aroma.
I'm sorry, Lanny. I should have gone. I didn't.
You should have gone.
Should have gone.
You, Jeff
But
O'Neill.
then-
I think O-Dog turned down Lanny. Might have been the same team.
Well, I
probably
was
was.
about the 20th defenseman that was called. So maybe
Anyway.
25th.
Look at it very quickly. Let's look at the American team real quickly, okay?
Yeah.
There were two surprises, but not to the magnitude of Bennett. But Adam Fox not being on that team surprised me. And I think they look at it, and again, this is just a matchup game that you would play against Canada, against the more powerful teams. Can you afford to have a smallish blue line? And I guess the answer to that would be no, you can't, because Adam Fox isn't on that blue line. And you obviously have Quinn Hughes, and you have some other very talented players. But then you look up front. Cole Caulfield wasn't a surprise to me because our sources had indicated all along, despite the fact that he's a shooter and he's a proven goal scorer at the NHL level, they just worried about him getting pushed out of the way and pushed out of the play. Okay, so he'd been on the outside looking in pretty much the entire time. Jason Robertson, more of a surprise, because that man can score goals. The question that management would ask, though, if he's not scoring goals, then what is he doing? Is he a liability? And I guess the answer would be yes. But if there's an injury up front for Team USA, I suspect that Robertson gets the nod ahead of Cole Caulfield, but Montreal Canadiens fans don't like when I say things like that.
That's right. They would hate that for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, Robertson's got 48 points and 41. He's got 24 goals. Again, it's like you say, it's not a snub. It's just how deep these teams are.
Yeah.
I always kind of look when I see JT Miller's name. It's like, it's a lot of baggage and emotions that come with that guy.
Yeah.
I wonder if I would just steer clear altogether of having that guy around. Now, maybe he's the guy that, like you say, like a Bennett that draws you in, and he's the dog that fights his way through, but just never quite sure.
Well, they better be able to score, right? And they should be able to. And you look at Austin Matthews and Kyle Connor, the Kachuk boys, and all of that. But if you don't, and you could say the same thing in Canada, guess what guys that got, we're going after them for that, right? I mean, you left some premium offense at home because you felt it was more important to have Brock Nelson there to defend, kill penalties, all of that. And JT Miller, not a head scratcher, but Chris Kreider's another one, I guess, that, mildly is a snub, but it's tough. You can't take 35 players. You can't, and that's the challenge these men face.
So is it fair to say you kind of have to put your working pants on right now? No more trips to Lake of the Prairies and, just kind of hang, because we got World Juniors and that's done. And you talk about the trade deadlines coming and then playoffs and things are tight and all that. I feel like it's almost kind of time to buckle down here, Drakes.
Well, you can feel that way. And I guess I do to a degree, but I do look forward to the February 4th Olympic roster freeze.
Ah, there it is.
Because then that does allow me to get back to the Cabbage Lake of the Prairies, probably around 13th of February or so. Not that I'm being specific.
No, how could you?
Yeah, I'll probably stay around the 21st. I feel like I should be back, at least in a position where if something crazy happened around the gold medal game before it was played, that I should be available. But no. So I've got a good month in me, Boomer, and then after that, I'm ice fishing.
Yeah. Beautiful. It's so good. Dregs, Happy New Year, pal.
Happy New Year, fellas.
There you go. Hey, buddies. Thanks for watching. We appreciate it. Also, if you could throw in a like and subscribe, it does help us out with what it is we are doing. And check out more at flamesnation.ca.